We're looking at the life cycle of a human, for one. How do we get from two gametes, an egg and a sperm, into a zygote, fertilization, and then into a zygote, and then from that zygote into a trillion-celled adult? Mitosis, cell division with mitosis. How does this lizard regrow its tail that it's lost? Cell division with mitosis. How does this sea star that looks like it's lost most of its body, how does it from one arm regrow these other four arms? Mitosis, cell division with mitosis. How do we replace all the skin cells that get sloughed off, the dead skin cells? They're replaced by these cells down here going through mitosis. Okay, so let's look at this process in a little bit more detail. So it's a cycle, a cell cycle. So here is our cell right here, and it goes through a whole cycle. It has chromosomes in it, and these chromosomes need to be replicated, duplicated, so that there's two sets of chromosomes, and one set will go in one daughter cell and the other set's going to go in the other daughter cell, so that these two cells at the end of cell division have exactly the same number of chromosomes and the same number of chromosomes that the parent cell had. So let's take a look at this cell cycle in a little bit more detail, and then we'll come back to just the mitosis part of cell cycle. Okay, here what we have, there are many phases in the cell cycle. Here, let's put that up here again. So this is a cell cycle. Our cell goes through phases. One of them is called interphase, and this whole thing out here is called interphase, and a cell spends most of its life in the phase called interphase, and that interphase is made up of other phases. One is called G1, and that's considered the growth phase. So what's happening to the cell in this phase of its life? Well, growth, and that's how you can remember G1. Growth is happening. Oops, there's a W there. Try that again. My pen again. Okay, growth. What else is happening? Well, actually, let me go through them real quick, and then I'll come back and look at each one in more detail. So this one, growth is happening. This is called S phase, and this is when the DNA is replicated, so that the cell can have the same amount of DNA in each of the daughter cells. And then this phase of interphase, G2, is also considered a growth phase. So growth is also happening here. And then just a small amount of this cell's life is mitosis. So mitosis, remember, is nuclear division. So this is when the nucleus is dividing and all the DNA is being shunted to two different cells. So this interphase is when the rest of the cell gets replicated. Cytokinesis is when the cell gets divided into two. So mitosis is nuclear division. That's when the nucleus is divided into two. Cytokinesis is when the rest of the cell is divided in two. Okay, so let's go back. What was G1? So we said growth. So let's see. So oh, right. So interphase, during G1 and G2 is when the organelles are duplicated. And the proteins for DNA synthesis are made. So proteins for DNA replication are made. There's more going on too, but these are some of the really important things we need to talk about right now. So after the proteins, like the enzymes, are made for DNA replication, then in S phase, this is when DNA is replicated. And you can think of S phase as being synthesis. DNA is being synthesized. And then in G2, again, we've got growth. We've got more organelles are being duplicated, but also this time proteins are being made for, oops, I lost my pen. Let's try this again. Okay. This time it's proteins are made for mitosis. Okay, and then we've got mitosis happens, the nucleus divides, and then cytokinesis, the rest of the cell divides. Okay, so let's go back. I think I've got everything on there that I wanted to talk. Let me look. Growth, yep, I've got everything. Okay, let's take a look at mitosis in a little bit more detail. So the idea of mitosis is to divide, divide the chromosomes that were replicated into two different cells. So this is a whole continuous process. We sort of identified certain stages in this whole process and labeled them. So here's our G1 phase. We just talked about our growth phase in interphase, and then our S phase where DNA is being replicated. But then in mitosis, we've got prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And I remember that by just remembering the words PMAT. So you can remember the order: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. You can also add IPMAT so that you've got interphase in there too. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show a video to help you see how it's a continuous process. Okay, so this is a cell, and it is going through mitosis. So let's take a look at it, and then we can pause it and come back. Okay, so let's go back and let's go through this step by step. What are we seeing here? So this is typical of what a cell in prophase looks like. The DNA has already been replicated in interphase. The chromosomes in interphase were in chromatin form. Now in mitosis, they need to be all wrapped up and bundled up so that they can be moved around the cell much easier than a strand of chromatin can be moved around the cell. So they're all folded up into chromosome form. And it's easy to see prophase because you can see the individual under a microscope, of course, a light microscope. You can see the individual chromosomes, but you can also start to see some white between the chromosomes. Okay. Now this continuous process keeps going. But we want to highlight the next event that happens, and that's going to be metaphase. And that's when these chromosomes are all brought to the center of the cell along a line right here called the metaphase plate. So the center of these chromosomes are all along this line right here, and you can see the ends of the chromosomes are all kind of going every different direction, but the centers are all lined up on this line. And that's getting ready for these sister chromatids now to separate. And this is typical of a cell in anaphase. So the sister chromatids have now separated, and they're going to opposite poles. And this is a typical cell in telophase. So the sister chromatids that are now separated have now become daughter chromosomes, are now at opposite ends of the cell at different poles. And you'll start to see that the nuclear membrane started to, let's go back a little bit, started to cover up these chromosomes so that you can't see them. What's also happening at the same time now is cytokinesis. And that means that the rest of the cell is now dividing. And you can see this line right here. And this is the cell wall, cell membrane and cell wall developing right here. So since it's a cell wall, that means that it's a plant. Okay. So let's get back to looking at our drawing of mitosis. And let's see, where's my pen? Let's see. Okay, my pen back here. Looking at these chromosomes. Okay, so in the next video, let's take a closer look at each of these processes in this drawing and how we're going to get two identical daughter cells. Okay, hope you found that interesting.